The world of international politics is a grim and unforgiving arena. States are the principal actors. Their ultimate goal is survival. In 1938, that reality was laid bare. Nazi Germany, a great power with revisionist aims, demanded territory from Czechoslovakia. The United Kingdom, France, both hoped to avoid a devastating war and believed agreements could contain German ambitions. They pursued appeasement. They sacrificed Czechoslovakia at the Munich Conference. Neville Chamberlain returns with the Munich Paper. It was a catastrophic miscalculation rooted in a failure to grasp power dynamics. A quintessential case study in realist logic. Czechoslovakia found its alliances useless. The supposed sanctity of international norms proved hollow. Great powers learned that concessions emboldened a determined aggressor. Their own security became more perilous. Promises of peace, appeals to a higher morality. Both proved hollow against raw national interest and military might. The lesson: without a higher enforcement authority, power decides disputes. Realism begins with a simple but profound observation about the structure of the international system. The system is anarchic. This doesn't mean chaos or constant war, though those can appear. Anarchy, technically, means no central government, no overarching authority above states. There's no global 911 when a state is attacked. Unlike domestic politics, where a government monopolizes legitimate force, the international realm lacks a leviathan. Each state is formally equal and sovereign, highest authority inside its borders. Because the system is anarchic, the primary actors are states. NGOs exist. Multinational corporations exist. Institutions like the United Nations exist. But realists see them as secondary. Their power depends on the states that created and permit them. The state commands armies. The state collects taxes. The state makes final decisions about war and peace. Individuals and groups operate inside the state's framework, but the state shapes its destiny on the world stage. This is state-centrism. Anarchy forces states into a self-help world. With no higher authority to rely on, each state must provide for its own security. That need is the main driver of state behavior. A state's primary goal isn't global human rights or a just world, it's survival. If a state fails to survive, it cannot pursue other goals. In an anarchic, self-help system, the ultimate currency is power. Power is the means by which states ensure their survival and achieve their objectives. For realists, international politics is synonymous with power politics. States constantly assess their power relative to other states and make decisions based on that calculus. But what is power? At its core, power is the ability to get another actor to do something it would not otherwise do. For realists, this ability is overwhelmingly rooted in material capabilities, with military strength being the most important form. A state with a powerful army is better positioned to defend itself and coerce others than a state without one. Military power, however, is not the only component of a state's strength. Latent power, the socio-economic foundations of military power, is also critically important. This includes a state's population size, its level of technological development, the health of its economy. A large and wealthy state can mobilize more resources to build and sustain a formidable military over the long term. This is why great powers are invariably wealthy states with large populations. China's rapid economic growth over the past few decades is the primary reason it is now considered a rising great power capable of challenging the United States. Its economic might is the foundation of its growing military might. The relentless pursuit of power is the logical consequence of the desire to survive in an anarchic world. States seek to maximize their relative power because the more powerful they are, the more secure they are, leading to perpetual security competition. They can do this through internal means, building up their military, building up their economy, or through external means, forming alliances with other states to counter a common threat. The goal is always the same: to ensure that no other state becomes powerful enough to dominate and threaten their existence. This focus on power often means that morality and ethics take a back seat in foreign policy. Section 4. The inescapable trap, the security dilemma and perpetual fear. One of the most tragic and enduring concepts in realism, the security dilemma. It arises from uncertainty about other states' intentions. In a self-help system, states build military capability to increase security. These defensive measures are often perceived as threats by others. Neighbors cannot be sure the new weapons are only defensive. They assume the worst, offensive use is possible, and respond. This creates a vicious cycle of escalation. State A sees neighbors arming and builds more. Neighbors respond again. An arms race begins. The result, all states end up less secure, even without aggressive intent. The security dilemma shows fear, not aggression, can drive conflict. Section 5. Historical echoes. The Peloponnesian War. The Cold War. The logic of realism is not a modern invention. It can be seen in conflicts throughout recorded history. Thucydides, in his account of the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, offered a powerful realist analysis. He famously wrote, "What made war inevitable was the growth of Athenian power and the fear which this caused in Sparta." This single sentence captures the essence of realism. It was not ideology, trade disputes, or bad leadership, but the structural change in the balance of power. Athens was a rising power. Sparta feared its relative position was eroding. The Peloponnesian War demonstrates the security dilemma in stark terms. Athens expanded its naval empire. Athens expanded its democratic influence. Those actions were seen as a direct threat to Sparta and its allies. Athenian measures, seen as necessary for prosperity and security, fueled Spartan fear and insecurity. That fear led Sparta to launch a preventive war. The conflict lasted nearly 3 decades, devastating the Greek world and leading to the downfall of Athens. Thucydides shows the tragic logic of power politics has been with us for millennia. A modern example is the Cold War. From 1947 to 1991, the international system was defined by bipolar competition between the United States and the Soviet Union. These two superpowers emerged from World War II as the planet's most powerful states. Once allies, they saw each other as mortal threats. The United States feared the spread of communism and Soviet expansionism. The Soviet Union feared capitalist encirclement and American military power. Each state's actions were driven by deep-seated fear of the other. The Cold War was classic security competition in an anarchic system. Both sides built up massive nuclear arsenals. They formed opposing military alliances, NATO, the Warsaw Pact. They competed for influence across the globe, fighting proxy wars in Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan. The ideological conflict between capitalism and communism was real, but from a realist perspective, it was secondary to the bipolar balance of power. Section 6. The enduring logic of power politics. Why realism persists. In the decades since the end of the Cold War, many have argued that realism is obsolete. Critics point to the rise of globalization, the spread of democracy, the growing importance of international institutions. They argue that economic interdependence, shared liberal values, have made war between great powers unthinkable. These liberal theories are appealing, promising a more peaceful and cooperative future. However, to dismiss realism is to ignore the fundamental structure of the international system, which has not changed. The world of 2025 remains anarchic. The enduring relevance of realism is clear in contemporary events. The rise of China is creating a classic security dilemma in East Asia, much like the rise of Athens did in ancient Greece. As China's economic and military power grows, the United States, Japan, South Korea are becoming increasingly fearful. In response, they are strengthening alliances and increasing military spending to balance against China. China, in turn, sees these acts as an attempt to contain its legitimate rise, fueling its own sense of insecurity. This is the tragic logic of great power politics in real time. State behavior is driven by calculations of national interest and survival. Russia's actions in Ukraine can be seen as a brutal attempt to prevent alignment with NATO, which it views as a security threat. While other factors are at play, the core of the conflict revolves around power, spheres of influence, and security concerns. International law, moral condemnation, have done little to change the situation, showing limits of institutions. In conclusion, realism offers a powerful, sobering explanation for world politics. It emphasizes a dangerous international system where states must look out for themselves. The logic of self-help compels competition for power to ensure survival, leading to perpetual security competition and the threat of war. Realism is not everything, but it captures a timeless truth about international politics. Without a central authority, realism remains indispensable for understanding states' hard choices.